22nd to order. The first item of business on our agenda for tonight is the minutes of our last meeting from 2/8 of '22, copies of which are in the packets. Any updates or revisions to the minutes necessary? If not, Dawn, go ahead.
The only comment.
Oop, turn your mic on, sorry.
The only comment that I have, and I'm following in Pat Peckham's footsteps, in the last paragraph regarding 106 Dive Point, they have listed the address as being 606 East Wausau Avenue, and it should be 106 East Wausau Avenue.
Okay, so noted. So we'll make that correction. Is there a motion then to approve the minutes with Dawn's change? Motion by Watson. Is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. The minutes are approved. Item number 2 is discussion and possible action regarding the purchase of a used hazardous materials team response tractor trailer. And I think for any of us who've toured the fire department, you know that they have a tractor trailer that they use to respond to hazmat events, and they are the regional hazmat team. And so we've got the fire chief with us, and he wants to talk with us about a replacement for that item because they've got a lead on one that's decent, and I think they've got some money for it. So
Sure.
welcome.
I appreciate you getting this on the agenda both tonight and for the council meeting tonight. I brought our hazmat leaders, Battalion Chief Craig Cruzan and Lieutenant Quinn Ambrosius along. They actually inspected the vehicle on Wednesday along with our fleet supervisor, Solomon King, and one of his mechanics. What I'll tell you about the purchase, I'll let them talk about the specifics or answer questions about the unit and how we use it. I'll tell you that I'm supportive of this, that I had tasked them quite a while ago as our fleet supervisor told us that our 40-year-old hazmat trailer, the axles were going bad, brakes are bad, you need to start looking for a replacement. I tasked them with that, and the reports have been nothing but bad coming back and super high costs, somewhere between the range of $500,000 to $600,000 to replace this unit, which obviously we're on the heels of buying 2 new engines, a ladder. This is a very specific unit for hazmat. Yeah. We want to use and I'll speak to the financial and administrative side of it. They can speak to the specifics. So we are, through our contract with the state of Wisconsin to provide regional Type 2 hazardous materials response for the region, we collect $81,000 a year. Now with the new county contract, there's another $20,000 there, so we can collect $101,000 in revenue for the hazardous materials response team. Now, all that money goes into a separate pot. Anytime that we're deployed, all the overtime and backfill comes out of that. Anytime we need a new meter, Cal gas is actually one of the most expensive things that we buy for keeping all of our meters, running. All of that comes out of that account, and then what we don't use, we carry over. And what we've been able to now save in that line is about $253,000. So we wanted to replace it for much less than that because we need some of those funds for the ongoing costs. And so we were really at a loss of how we were going to do that. And then Quinn Ambrosius discovered this rig on the open market, and we did not want to see it get sold elsewhere. It was a hot commodity out there. So I'll let them come up and they can speak to, unless you got some questions about the admin side.
Nope. Let's talk about the trailer itself first. So, welcome.
Hi there.
Hi.
Do you have any questions about the current trailer or the one that we've been looking at?
Given the fact that it's been identified by Motor Pool as having a number of impending mechanical failures, I guess I don't have really any. Does committee members, do you have any questions for them about the old trailer? It's been around a really long time.
I've seen the old trailer, so it's bad.
Okay.
Yeah, the trailer's just a little old. It's 1991. The team was essentially established in 1994, so the trailer was even older than when the team was established. So it's definitely at its end of its lifespan for sure.
Okay.
So essentially what Quinn found was Madison Fire Department selling their old hazmat unit. And it's a tractor trailer just like what we have, only quite a bit newer. And for the price of it, it's almost something we can't pass up. Right now that current one breaks down almost every time that we have to travel on a call. The state expects us to be able to travel on calls because they're paying us, as does the city of Wausau and Marathon County. We just can't trust that vehicle anymore, and he was fortunate enough to find this. That should keep us on the road as a patch for quite a while yet.
Sure. Okay, committee members, any additional questions? Go ahead, Deb.
Do you know, did the city of Madison buy it new? Did they buy it used?
That trailer?
Yes.
I believe they bought it brand new in I don't know what year.
Yeah, 2010.
Okay. Do they have like the maintenance records for it, so we have that information?
Yeah, we went down last week with Solomon, with Fleet, and they went through it with a fine tooth comb on their end as far as maintenance and everything as far as readiness. And they, as far as my understanding is, he thought that vehicle was immaculately kept with immaculate records. We went through it on the hazardous materials side, and we do believe that's going to fit our needs perfectly to make it kind of seamless as of right now.
Okay,
Sounds good, thank you.
sounds good. All right. Anybody else have questions on that item? Okay. And so the purchase price is $125,000, so $125,000 of the surplus that you've accumulated from the hazmat budget, and that will even still leave you some for operations, which is fantastic. Does anybody have any additional questions for the chief? If not, is there a motion to approve the purchase? Motion by Ryan, second by Herbst. Members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed, that item carries. So, thank you everyone for putting in the time and the legwork to find that vehicle for us, so. Thanks, guys. Okay, that brings us to item 3, discussion and possible action on rescinding prior resolution 12-0705, joint resolution of the Economic Development and Finance Committee approving the sale of 2B surveyed Wausau Business Campus expansion area land at 9500 to 9600 Innovation Way to Composite Envisions or their assignee and reverse tax increment financing payments for 2 years not to exceed a total of $49,000, adopted September 24th, 2019. And we've got a memo in our packets from the city attorney on that. Does anybody have any questions on this particular item?
I think Randy's here.
Randy is here. Do you have questions for? Come on up, Randy, and then go ahead with your question, Deb.
I was just hoping for an
I can try to answer anything. I mean, I just took this on in the last month and working with the attorney's office. They were trying to get in contact with Mr. Thorson for some time and trying to determine what his intent was with this. They had sent a certified letter to him. He had responded back to me. Just unfortunately a circumstance of what's been happening over the last year or two. Building costs have gone up tremendously. Business expansion, depending on what industry you're in, is questioned, and it's not the only thing happening. Later tonight, I'll be talking about AC and Sons, which you saw at your last meeting, where they had intended on moving forward with the project, but unfortunately, based on those circumstances, putting a pause in their plans.
Sure. So in this particular situation, if we were to rescind this agreement, that land then reverts back to us. Would we then make it available for development to anyone who wants it? I certainly don't want to sit on it waiting for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a little different case than AC and Sons. That was a case where we'd actually sold the property and it was transferred. This is just a development agreement sitting out there. So as soon as this was rescinded, we would make that land available for development again.
Sure. I mean, if no one wants it, that's fine, and at some future date, if they want to do something with it, they can come back, but I don't want to sit on it without a commitment, so.
Absolutely.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Randy? If not, is there a motion to rescind the previously approved item? Motion by Ryan, is there a second? Second by Herbst. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed, that item carries. Item number 4, discussion and possible action on the ARPA rating matrix. And we've got a little chart in our packets that we can refer to for that. Mary Ann's been working on some criteria for us to approve some applications. Do you want to kind of walk through it a little bit?
Yeah, I think we walked through it at the last meeting, and there was comments that there was some duplication in the criteria, and then we also talked about, when I had first created the matrix, I had put just some dollar amount thresholds in the cost, and, we discussed the fact that it doesn't really need to be a dollar amount. It's mainly to recognize whether someone's using all of the funds or if the funds are reasonable compared to the total amount of allocation. So I made those changes. I do see I have one little typo in the cost under the 1 to 5 points. I have a is in there that doesn't need to be, so I'll remove that.
Okay. So this looks like some of the changes that we had asked
Yep.
for also.
So, yep.
Any additional comments on the rating form? If not, is there a motion to approve the rating form? Oh, Deb, go ahead.
I have some questions.
Sure.
I guess I'm concerned with the ARPA that it should be used primarily for lead, which was the intent from the Biden administration, as well as for affordable housing or things that would help, like with infrastructure, say, if we want to replace the elevator in, say, the Riverview Towers or stuff like that, and that it should be kind of having that area of expertise. I guess I'm disappointed in some ways that we have our different departments have their information out on Facebook, and I was hoping that with a videographer that we would be doing a lot more education in multiple ways, especially, water and sewer and other health issues and safety issues within the city and the needs, especially in affordable housing. So, but I do have concerns that if we only use online as our way to market, that is not going to be successful and really help the most in need that may not be using that or are older, have no computers and such. And so that I think in a number of ways, I was hoping with our neighborhood groups and other ways of getting out there in the community, talking to people one-on-one and educating them through public access and YouTube, as well as having things out in on the local stations, and that it's important for the city to engage and start the conversation. And then I'm hoping it's not going to be just the city's hiring a contractor and contractor, you do it, we don't want to do it, whatever you want is fine. The residents are our board of directors. They're looking for guidance, they're looking for ways to engage with us and expectations. And with these ARPA funds, this is one-in-a-lifetime funds, and that we should be using them wisely and not just for some development and 1% of the entire city. Thank you.
Okay. Now with that, when we talked originally about the application process, we had thought that at least the early rounds of this, these would be internal applications that are coming in from the departments, right?
Yeah,
So-
I would be surprised if there's anything out there yet, because you approved some ARPA spending as part of the 2022 budget, but that was really the lost revenue component, so it was for capital for the city. So, and no other ARPA funds besides the $350,000 for the Landmark Hotel have been authorized for expenditure for you. So I wouldn't expect that the departments would be advertising spending ARPA funds at this moment. I don't know if, Deb, you were responding to the survey, which was the next item on the agenda. If I could just also comment on one other comment that Deb, or two comments on, those hit hardest, like housing. We do have census tract eligibility, and those disproportionately negatively impacted by COVID-19 as one of our rating matrices, so
Yeah.
they would score higher, as well as environmental concerns. So if you look at the impact of deferral, it specifically refers to regulatory mandates, health and safety risks, or environmental issues. So in both the lead service and affordable housing would then garner more points. And then finally, that last item really is kind of a caveat for rankers to really have some latitude in giving points to something that they think is super important and very transformational for the city. So, but I'm, definitely open to further modifications, but I did want to respond to those specific concerns.
Well, and I do think that if we get to a point, we have a finite period of time with which to spend this money down, and I think if we don't start a process soon, we're not going to, we have to have time to evaluate and score these, and then also then line up the logistics of whatever they are, and make sure that we can get them done in time and funded in time. And, it made sense to kind of sit on this for a little bit, waiting for guidance or to see where there's synergies with other types of aid that may be coming down the pike, which has been painfully slow. But I think that also creating a process like this where when there are projects that meet that criteria, that actually will give us a fair way to compare projects and score projects, either against one another or against the standards. So, I think that, obviously, we're not approving a realm of a whole lot of projects right now, but I think to have this as a tool to use really is a way for us to stay on task with figuring out, does it fit the profile of what we want? And then, stacked up against other requests, are they, more or less worthy, I guess. This matrix makes sense to me, I guess, as a tool. Go ahead, Deb.
I guess I just
Oh,
wanted
throw your mic on.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to reinforce that I was concerned that the, Community Development Housing Authority has not been meeting for quite a bit. I'm getting a number of complaints and concerns about like the elevator, and that Hami Homes under the Community Development Block Grant mentioned that they have some elevators that are between 60 and 100 years old, and the replacement is about $1 million each elevator, and that they need like 6. Now, I'm glad I know that. That information is helpful to know, but I do think, does this cover the Community Development Authority making a request, say, to replace the elevators or upgrade their windows or do some other weatherization? That I do realize that we have some census tracts that are, they're in the, especially along the river or, the north side or in the industrial park, that are in an area that census tract wise might be appropriate, but are we trying to, with the ARPA, go ahead and work with those that are most at risk and vulnerable and in need of these funds versus funding market rate apartments when we need affordable apartments?
Is there anything that preempts the CDA from applying if
No.
they have a need? Okay, so they could apply.
And I would expect, since community development, that's one of their divisions, basically,
Right.
is a division of the department. So, yeah, I would expect.
So I guess I'm hoping that they will be doing something. I just wanted to make sure that they're somehow not boxed out of doing that, because it's a once in a lifetime with these funds, and we should be frugal and thrifty with the funds and try to use them to the best we can.
We are. I think that this opens the door for some applications to at least start to flow that for some purposes. If we really wanted to, be honest, we could spend all of the money we got 10 times by the end of this meeting if we wanted to. If we wanted to talk about, all of the things we've been talking about for the last few meetings, there is way more need than there is cash. But I think this gives us a good, it stands up a plan for us to start to prioritize what we want to spend money on. So is there a motion to approve the matrix as a tool to use to score projects? Motion by Martin, second by Watson. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. Let's see here. Then we got item number 5, discussion and possible action on authorizing the employment flash vote for community ARPA surveys.
And again, this kind of takes off on Deb Ryan's comments. I share her interest in engaging the community on how to spend ARPA funding. And, as we've talked about ways to try to increase engagement and, one way oftentimes is to diversify the way you communicate with people, right? To increase the kinds of communication. We've had a couple of public hearings on it, and the turnout was very low. So I was looking at, examples of what other communities are trying to do with ARPA surveys and talking to other finance people of, well, what kind of response are they getting on their surveys? And I happened upon this company called Flash Vote as community used them for their ARPA surveys. And what sets Flash Vote apart from what I would call a passive survey, where you just post it on your website and you hope someone, you can put something on Facebook that says, hey, take my ARPA survey, but it's really, just hoping that someone bumps into your survey. This is something where you are engaging residents to be basically on a panel. And so they would sign up. Again, this company would help us go through a process, reaching out to the neighbor groups, reaching out through various means to get citizens who are interested in providing feedback on any sort of policy type decision we would have throughout the year. And those individuals become kind of a permanent anonymous panel member. And so then when we have issues that come up, we can reach out to that panel and ask, how do you feel about this issue? And certainly it's not a closed panel, meaning people are allowed to sign up or to terminate their participation in the panel at any time. So, we can be in a continual process of trying to recruit new residents to participate. But it assures you of a couple of things, that you've got a group of people who will tell you how they feel about a subject, and that they haven't signed up because they feel really strongly about one subject. And so oftentimes that can skew your results. I know they had, and I don't know if anyone had time to go out and look, but I had included a couple of links in mine, and they used actually chickens in a community as an example. And I can recall
We've
when
been down that road.
council chambers was full because it, caused some significant reaction. And so we had, maybe 60 people show up, but our population is 40,000. And so I think, when you have a panel and they've said, we'll tell you about things, how we see it, you're going to get maybe a more representative sample of how everyone else is feeling, because it's not filled with, lovers or haters. It's just people who have said, yeah, I care about the community and I want to provide you feedback on how I feel about things.
Well, and I like the way this works because it doesn't cause people to have to take special time out of their day and
Yes.
make a trip here to interact with us. Because I think if we accept feedback from all different channels, let's say we engage with neighborhood groups and we, are soliciting feedback in our neighborhoods. But at the same time, if an issue comes up and we can say, well, hey, what does the flash vote panel think about this? I mean, in theory, as a sampling of a larger community, a lot of the feedback that we're getting individually probably should mirror the feedback that we get from flash vote if it's all things being equal. So I like this as just one more tool to get feedback from people.
And I know, there's always concern, well, what if people don't have computers? So they can take this survey over the phone too. It doesn't have to be a smartphone, it's just, a regular landline. So that opens it up to other, to residents who maybe aren't, tech savvy. So the price is $6,900 annually for 6 surveys. When they set up our survey panel, it would be an additional $1,500 to accomplish that. Again, I'm not married to this idea. I liked the idea that it would be quickly available to us if we have emerging issues and we are interested in taking the temperature of the community. So it had multiple practical applications, and that they help you with your questions, so you have professionals who are helping you ensure that your questions are concise and easy to respond to. And like I said, in reaching out to people that had actually used it, they were very happy. They don't have any Wisconsin communities. They do. Winneconne, I think, is starting to set theirs up. They would be their first Wisconsin client, but it is well represented in Minnesota and throughout the United States.
It might be something just to try. I mean, try it once and see how it goes. And, if it is really successful, it may be something that we want to maintain going forward, but I think it's certainly worth a try. It's an avenue that we've never tried before. But what do you guys think? Michael, go ahead.
I guess one of the things, I was reading this information and also looking here on the website a little bit. One of the things that I like about it is that they state that their surveys are statistically relevant. And I think that's a very important thing we need to consider when taking surveys, because, anybody can put out, a survey on any kind of social channel or a Google form or something like that. But unless it has some kind of statistical relevancy, the answers are just as, garbage in is garbage out. So I guess that's one thing that I see for it in its favor. It's not that expensive, I guess, considering the cost to get 6 statistically relevant surveys. So that's.
Well, I think, I agree with that. I think that it's easy to put a survey out, 10 people respond, and they, most of them respond the same way, and you can say, well, 90% of the survey respondents said this. Well, it doesn't mean 90% of your community feels that way. So, I think that to have that perspective of the statistical relevance is super important for us. Deb?
Thank you, Lisa. When we were back, what is it now, Marianne, maybe 10 years or more, about the garbage carts,
Oh, yeah.
there was like a small group of maybe, 5 or under 10 that were surveyed about their concerns about the garbage cart.
We had a focus group or something, didn't we?
A
small
focus group.
Yeah.
And it happens for a few of my senior neighbors. Some of the carts were bigger than they were, or that when they finally got it, and then especially, some areas of town is very hilly. And if you're dealing with a hill, one of my neighbors ended up falling and getting hurt and trying to maneuver the cart around as such. So I do understand some of the younger people that are hip and into things may be willing to step up and do that. My concern is, though, we need to really be representative of the rest of the population, and that a couple years ago we had AARP that was going to be working with us on improving how to get around and make the sidewalks and the curbs and take away all the potholes as an issue to be concerned with for seniors, and we still have plenty of them. And at some point in most people's lives, something's going to happen, and you're going to end up with a walker or a wheelchair. And so it may not be now, it may be years from now, but there is a lot of different perspectives that we need to get out there. And for some of the people, I'm just worried that if we keep it anonymous, or that we don't try to reach out to maybe some of our elders or former leaders, like in the school board or on different committees, or leadership Wausau, or former alderpersons who may have a more broad look at the community overall, as well as some of our neighbors, that we may end up being distorted and missing some sections of our population that don't seem to be included, or that they may have difficulty really thinking of taking a survey, or thinking it's a scam or whatever. But part of the getting the word out too is promoting it within the newsletter, through public access, through the videographer, through the different departments, so to really let our neighbors know about it.
Sure. I think that's important, and I think that, it's one tool among many. Not everyone will, want to use it but for those who will, it's just one more way for us to get that feedback. Sarah?
So Mary Ann, though, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that you can participate via landline too?
Yes.
So I guess my, my other question is, how do they establish the survey panel? Is it randomized, like they do a randomized survey, or a randomized,
Yeah. They
They
send out
search-
a mailing to
Okay.
all residents asking them to sign up. They would, use our social media platforms to encourage people to sign up. They are able to verify addresses, so it would be City of Wausau residents. I guess the anonymity, is that how you say it?
Anonymity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of it is that we don't know how someone has voted, so that they don't have to worry that, they're going to get people calling them or slamming them on Facebook or whatever because they voted a certain way. So how they feel about a subject is not open to us when they vote. And so they use all of our social tools to try to get people to sign up. And like I said, the sign up, it's as many people that want to sign up. So if we can get 10,000 people, that's how many will be in our panel. If we can get 3,000 or 2,000 people, that's how many would be in the panel. There's not going to be a closure of how many we can have. And, people moving in and out of town, people who decide, yeah, I'm not really interested in participating, they unenroll or they can enroll at any time. So if you did have something where there was an issue coming up, as long as they had registered, sufficiently before the question came up, they would still be able to express how they felt about the chickens.
So my other question too, because it sounds like it will be statistically significant, right?
Yes.
So they collect demographic, socioeconomic
Yep.
status, gender, but then, so they have that anonymously coded somewhere.
Yes.
And is there a minimum? Because if there's only 5 people, then
Oh.
we have that issue of, well, 100% voted.
Yeah.
So, do they have a minimum
And
threshold?
that is disclosed to you in the survey once it's completed, how many people did respond. So you would know that in advance. I didn't ask specifically that question, but, based on some of the other communities, I think, that they typically have a good response rate, but I'll ask that question.
Okay. Any additional questions?
And I can bring this back at the next meeting if you have, other questions that you want me to ask, I can, certainly.
So, because we certainly don't have to act on it tonight. So if you want to hold action on it until Mary Ann can gather a little more info, we could bring it back next time, if that works for you guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe if there's more information on the statistical significance and relevancy.
Okay.
Because I think that's probably our biggest sticking point,
Yep.
I know, people really, like to demean statistics, but, if you can get a panel of 1,000 people, that's going to be, significant. And I want to see a little bit more of that back end, how they are able to assure us that their surveys are significant.
Okay, and then I'll get more information on the sign up, how they attract members. Okay.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Because I guess I'm just worried about that self-selection fallacy that, Mary Ann, you were mentioning,
Yeah.
people that are hardcore into something. But if it's more like, if it's explained clearly what the participation in the panel is, maybe that'll be helpful too.
Right.
So how that communication goes.
Okay.
Sounds good. So we'll,
Lisa, I
Yeah.
was just going to mention that maybe there's ways with ADRC to get the word out within their senior monthly magazine. And then there are a number of active seniors that are with the retired volunteers that are seniors that are doing things in the community. So I understand that maybe some older that may not want to be involved one way or the other, but I'm hoping as part of the residents that you will be collecting some information of basic data of what age they are, some general things, so that if we are missing a lot of information regarding seniors or the disabled, then maybe we could be reaching out to, Mid-State Independent Living or the Disability Center, or other agencies that are working with that population that might be able to encourage us so that we're not missing that.
Sure, okay. Well, we'll hold on that item then, and we'll talk about that a little more next time. Item number 6 is discussion and possible action amending the Employee Handbook 4.07, Protected Service Employees. This item comes to us with a recommendation from the HR Committee, and you've got their minutes in your packets, and then also, their minutes outline the discussion that they had, and it looks like it's largely based on the reimbursement for training when someone departs. So, does anyone have any questions on that at all? If not, it looks like their recommendation is that we move forward with the option that they've selected. And it does look like a rather small budget impact in comparison to their total training budget. Do we have a motion to approve that item? Motion by Herbst, second by Martins. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That item carries. Item number 7 is discussion and possible action creating a temporary part-time deputy assessor position. And it looks like this maybe is in the realm of a little bit of succession planning. We do have Rick on WebEx if you guys have questions for him. Oh, Rick is here. Okay. So he's signed in his office and he's here. Perfect. So, it looks like the recommendation from HR was to approve. Did you want to talk to the committee a little bit about it though, Rick?
Sure. We had an opportunity here in the department to keep the current employee on board until June 1st. He did want to retire. With discussion with him, knowing that it's our busiest time of year, he elected that he would stay on part-time if he could. So this would help us when we select a new deputy position. To fill that position, Dan will be there to help fill that and training with that new person.
That helps. I think it's
Yeah.
huge to have that institutional knowledge pass from the one person to the other. Anybody have questions for Rick? If not, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Watson, second by Herbst. Questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. Item number 8 is discussion and possible action regarding the application for ARPA American Recovery Funds for the water PFAS treatment investigation and pilot bench testing and related budget amendment. This item actually is a result of some action that was taken last week by the Water Commission. They have recommended that they commence a pilot study to determine, in connection with adjustments to the new plant, what the appropriate mix of filtration media and resins and things is to get the right treatment for PFAS for a long-term solution at our new plant. We'll bring up the Public Works Director if you want to walk us through that a little bit, Eric.
Yeah, this is a little unique because it's evolving right now. So at the commission meeting and where we're at with the water system, we'd like to pursue a pilot testing program to determine what the best options are for PFAS removal with proven technologies at this point. That would be resin, granular activated carbon, in a few different scenarios with the media that we're also putting in the facility also. The scope of services is evolving right now, and that scope of services will go to the commission on March 1st for discussion and finalization. And the final approval for any funding would come back to council at the following meeting. So this is really just the first step for this to see, kind of keep this moving forward.
Right.
These pilot studies and this information we're going to need for approval for anything we do at the drinking water treatment facility through the DNR and the PSC. So the sooner we can get started with this data, the better, and so we can present that to the DNR and get approval.
So, and if we would move this along sooner than later, that then hopefully should allow us to make the appropriate adjustments and still open on time at the plant? Is that?
Yeah, which would be a little bit later this summer.
Sure,
Yep.
sure. So if we were to approve the funding, at least on this committee end, and then the Water Commission considers those options March 1st, when it gets to council on the 8th of March, then that funding really could be a joint recommendation from this committee and the commission?
It
To
could
the
be,
council?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then we would have, detailed costs, detailed scope.
Sure.
All of the details for
Yep.
everybody.
I feel like it goes without saying that we need a long-term resolution to PFAS. I mean,
Right.
we know that, what we do in the short term is really a separate set of votes, but, to make sure that we have the right mix going at the new plant and the right water chemistry to both keep people safe and then also not completely upset the chemistry mix that deals with corrosion control that can cause us other things. I think it's important that we kind of get going on this so that they can, there's a lot of tests involved, I think, right? So,
Yeah, and a lot of collaboration, like with the DNR, the PSC, the regulatory authorities as we move forward. They're gonna have to approve the pilot study too before we start it. And so we're gonna begin having those conversations with them this week or maybe early next week as well.
that's good. I think it's helpful, though, that if you're not held up on the money part, and then you can work out the logistics, I think that gets you guys going sooner than later.
Yeah, I think it'll help too, because right now, we really don't have a budget. And so, the consultants we're working with, as well as vendors we're talking to and stuff, we're, hoping that they continue to work with us with, without an approved budget, knowing that there's support
Right.
to move this forward, so.
Excellent. All right. Anybody have questions for Eric on this testing? If not, is there a motion to approve the funding and move it forward?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead with your question first, Deb.
I had sent some emails to you, Eric, and to, I think, Dawn and to the mayor. And it's not all specifically about the PFAS, but it just seems hand in hand. I do think the Water Commission and then the council needs to know where we are with the underground infrastructure in our streets of what has been upgraded, what is still needs to be upgraded, that's like old infrastructure that may be lead based and lead laterals, and that from reading online, I think we have over 30 miles of infrastructure in our street. So since the lead went into effect, how many miles have we upgraded the streets in? How many we're talking about? I know on the lead laterals, we were talking about 9,000 still lead laterals, that if we only do 100 a year, that it would be taking, 90 years. So I understand the concerns about the PFAS, but we still have a lot of older homes and maybe 50% of our population that are lower income. And they can't wait indefinitely for decades or 4 decades to have drinking water in their homes. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to give an update for the March 1st meeting, because I do think this is critical, that we are looking at both the lead and the PFAS, so that if there's a need to do this filtering system in people's kitchen sinks for the existing water at now to be safe, that it's something that we need to do, and we need to understand so that we can start looking at the overall long-term plan. How long is it going to take for the last house to get upgraded and have new pipe in the street, new lateral? And if it's going to take a decade or 4 decades, they deserve to have that water filtered now until that happens.
Is your interest in the street infrastructure as far as water and stormwater or wastewater, is that confined strictly to lead pipes, or are you interested in general as far as what infrastructure? Because we can have a map done by GIS in SISM to show you what streets have been done and whether or not they've had full replacements or not. I mean, if you're interested in that infrastructure piece, that's a SISM thing.
I'm interested in that, but I think we're talking about, for this long-term plan that I think Joe Jean started under his administration, if we got 30 miles, where are we?
Okay, then that sounds like a water commission thing with lead pipes, so.
But it's also part of what will eventually go to the city council, because the PFAS are important, but the lead is as well as important. And that would eventually require the old infrastructure to be replaced. And I don't even know if you even have an estimate about.
Well, I can tell you right now that, this might be a little off topic, but right now we're working through a lead service line replacement plan, which is part of what is going to be required through the revisions to the lead and copper rule with the EPA, right? So that's our start, and part of that is the inventory, and specifically that's for lead lines, both private and public side lead service lines. When we get into like main infrastructure, things like that, we have a couple 100 miles of water main in the ground. And so, based on that, I guess we could, kind of give you a breakdown. We do it for the PSC every year on age of pipes, the infrastructure that's in the ground and things like that. We could do that as well, Deb.
Okay, because I do think that is the overall issue, that we still have a lot of old pipes underground.
It is. The issue, though, that has taken over the public narrative for the last week and a half is 100% PFAS, though, and this pilot study is PFAS specific, correct? So what we have to approve tonight is PFAS. We can certainly have future discussions, though, about, lead, if the Water Commission brings forward a plan for, either phased or cyclical replacements, and they need money, that's something we can look at here. But this particular money is long-term PFAS solution, which the community is emphatically asking us for. So,
And I think the other good thing is there is other funds coming down the pike. As you pointed out, it's a slow arrival.
slow process. Yep.
And that, you're looking at three construction seasons that we can perform these kinds of duties, because we have to have the funds obligated by the end of 2024. So, we have 3 summers, basically. So I think that, to some degree, is self-limiting, too, as to
Right.
what we can actually accomplish during
Sure.
that time period.
Do we have a motion to approve this funding for the pilot study? Motion by Herbst, is there a second by Martins? Further discussion or questions, Sarah?
So I also had a question too. This is looking at just how we're going to put it into the drinking water treatment facility, right? Is there any evidence or path that some have taken to eliminate from the wastewater as well? Or do a treatment on that
Yeah,
end?
because PFAS is so prevalent and it doesn't go away, right? So, we take it out of one stream and put it in another, right? And so wastewater is also under discussion. Again, it's unregulated at this point in time. There have been discussions about, testing biosolids with the DNR. There have been discussions about testing the liquid stream, to see where it is. The DNR has started putting out some guidelines for that. But again, there's no mandatory testing at this point, and so we're just kind of waiting on additional future guidance from them. But yes, absolutely, it is being looked at as well, which will be something, again, that, will be coming forward at that time. So, yep, it's a very
Okay.
good point.
Perfect. Additional questions? Seeing none, then, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed, so that item
you.
carries. And then we'll see that at council on March 8th. So with that, that's our last agenda item, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion from Watson, is there a second? Second from Ryan. Members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We'll stand adjourned, and then common council will start in this chamber at 6:30. Thanks, everyone.